Test, test.
Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant General Greg Bilton, Chief of Joint Operations at Headquarters, Joint Operations Command. Lieutenant General Bilton is retiring after 41 years of military service, and this evening marks one of his last official roles at the memorial as a uniformed member of the Australian Defence Force. Lieutenant General Bilton, we are grateful to you and your family for your service, and we wish you every success in retirement. Today, we remember and commemorate the Battle of Fromelles. On the 19th of July, 1916, the last of the Australians to arrive in France from Egypt became the first to take part in a major operation when the 5th Australian Division joined the 61st British Division in an attack on German positions near Fromelles. A feint designed to draw German reserves away from the Battle of the Somme to the south, the operation was conducted in broad daylight under direct observation of heavy machine gun. It was a disaster. In less than 24 hours, 5,533 Australians became casualties. Some 2,000 were dead. The 61st Division, having contributed about a third of the attacking force, suffered over 1,500 casualties. Realising the significance of Fromelles to our young nation, Charles Boone returned to walk over the ground on the day of the armistice, to think, reflect and record before the battlefield returned to peace. He found the old no man's land simply full of our dead. The skulls and bones and torn uniforms were lying about everywhere. He described Fromelles as one of the bravest and most hopeless assaults ever undertaken by the AIF. This evening, we commemorate all those names who are listed here on the Roll of Honour and the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome Mr. Patrick Delguidis, Deputy President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, and one recruit training unit from the Royal Australian Air Force Base in Wagga Wagga. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Yandina State School, Yandina, Queensland, and Belgrave Heights Christian School, Belgrave Heights, Victoria. If able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Boone, Australia's First World War official historian. Boone landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Boone's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 Australian men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Second Lieutenant Claude Arthur Boone. Claude Boone was born on the 6th of July 1885 in Leichhardt, New South Wales. He was one of 6 children born to John Westcott Boone, a solicitor's clerk, and his wife, Margaret. Claude received his education at Sydney Grammar School, where he was a keen student and sportsman. After his schooling, he continued rowing and was a member of the Neutral Bay Rifle Club. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Claude was working as a clerk. Claude Boone enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 4th of August 1915. He was commissioned to the rank of Second Lieutenant before being appointed to the 16th Reinforcements of the 2nd Battalion. On the 9th of April 1916, he embarked for active service, sailing from Sydney on the troop ship Nestor. In May 1916, Boone arrived in Egypt, where new recruits and veterans from the recently abandoned Gallipoli were transferred to the newly formed 54th Battalion during a period of expansion in the Australian Imperial Force. On the 19th of June, he embarked for the Western Front with his new unit. They were immediately sent north to the French and Belgian border, which had once been the site of bitter fighting. Now comparatively quiet, this area of the front became known as the nursery sector, where new troops were introduced to life in the trenches. After a few days in the front lines, Boone's unit was called into action near the village of Fromelles. It was here that he would take part in his first and last major action of the war. The battle was intended as a feint to prevent German reserves from moving south to take part in the Battle of the Somme. Ordered to attack strongly fortified enemy positions near Aubert Ridge, the Allied advance was preceded by a 7-hour bombardment. When the battle began in broad daylight, advancing units quickly realised that not only had the artillery been almost useless, it had also served to warn the enemy of the attack. As they jumped the parapet, Allied troops were quickly cut down in waves by murderous machine gun and artillery fire from German troops who had taken cover during the earlier bombardment. Though some of the men made it to their objective, they were quickly forced to withdraw and were again caught under heavy fire during their retreat. By the time the battle was called off, the 5th Division alone had suffered 5,500 casualties. The attack has been remembered as the worst 24 hours in Australia's entire history. Among these casualties was 2nd Lieutenant Claude Boone, who was killed by a shell during the attack on Fromelles. His comrade, Lieutenant Healy, recalled Boone's final moments, writing to the Red Cross. He was blown to pieces just behind the parapet by a high explosive shell. Nearly all our officers were knocked out, and I saw him actually killed. Bits of him were found, and I believe what was supposed to have been him was buried at Sailly-sur-l'Allier. Another of Boone's men commented, "He was absolutely one of the best. Could not beat him." Today, Boone lies at Anzac Cemetery in Sailly-sur-l'Allier beneath the words chosen by his parents. They read, "Death is not death to him, but glorious gain." 2nd Lieutenant Claude Boone was 31 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember 2nd Lieutenant Claude Arthur Boone, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Boone. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub on Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.